then be Prime Minister.
All right, welcome back to Kenya's Choice 2022 on this fifth day of September. Let's get back into our conversation about the 13th Parliament and, of course, the race that's heating up for Speaker of the House. Two men have been fronted by either side of the political divide. Kenneth Marende for the Azimio side and Moses Wetangula for Kenya Kwanza. And I'll lead in with a question coming in from social media. Bob Owino is asking, actually this is directed to Honorable Mbui and Fred, to clear the air about Kalonzo Musyoka being shortchanged for the National Assembly Speaker's seat with the former Speaker Kenneth Marende because they both come from Azimio. So what do you make of that shift? I'll start with you, Honorable Mbui.
Okay, thank you. Let me make this very, very clear. That from the beginning, my party leader, the Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, was not going to be Speaker. The position that he's taking up in the Azimio leadership, if things go our way, is Chief Minister, which is the equivalent of Prime Minister. So he'll be running government business, also even in the House. He's the one who'll be directing the House on what to do. So that's a position that he was going for. It is only during one of our meetings that somebody out of despair mentioned that why don't we have His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka go for the position of Speaker of the House. Yeah. So that was never it was never part of our plan, and that is why we've gone back to, we've gone back to factory settings, which is Kalonzo is going for Prime Minister after the ruling, Marende is going to be the Speaker of the House. That is the position of Azimio.
Junet Mohammed said we're looking for someone who is tried and tested. And Marende was a unifying factor during the time that he was Speaker. What do you make of his nomination, Fred?
Maybe just to reiterate on what Honorable Mbui has said. Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, from the beginning, and if Kenyans can recall, when Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga was unveiling Martha Karua as the deputy president or candidate, he did say that Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka will be the chief minister, and we do believe that will happen. We do believe that will happen at its right time, following what we do expect. Number two, Kenneth Otiato Marende is a gentleman who has been tested and tried. And in fact, I'm sure members of parliament who were in the last house can bear me witness that they've missed Marende in his Solomonic rulings. And we know for sure, when this election for Speaker comes, even our good friends, my good friend here, Honorable Edward, will vote for Marende because of the history Marende has in bringing the House together and trying to be non-partisan and clear in his agenda in terms of leading the National Assembly. So for me, I think the choice of Marende is a very good choice. Somebody who has been tried, tested, somebody whom we have seen his work, somebody whom we can actually vouch for. We have seen instances in the previous parliaments where speakers are rogue. We have seen instances where speakers make rulings, they don't listen to the other members. But in Marende, if you go by history, then I think that choice by Azimio was a perfect choice. Because I can tell you, Vicky, what Kenyans are waiting for, they're waiting for a parliament that is coordinated. They're waiting for a parliament that is unified. They're waiting for a parliament that considers the interest of the public. And they're waiting for a parliament that is not rogue. In that doing, then we must have a speaker that also conforms to those virtues. That speaker, in my view, would be Kenneth Otiato Marende. So I think Azimio made a very good choice. What we are wishing the public is that after today, and we pray again that the judgment favors Kenyans, not politicians, then so that when the parliament sits in their first sitting, probably this week or by 8th, 9th, when the members will be electing their speaker, we do have Kenneth Otiato Marende elected as the speaker. Because clearly, as Honorable Boya said, we do have majority. But you see also, going by what happens today, majority of people who are moving away, and even some who are in Kenya Kwanza, would want to shift allegiance and say, okay, we thought that we are not in now, let's move and vote for Speaker Marende because he's a guy that we can trust in leading us in the House. So we hope that the election of the Speaker will clear some of these issues. We also hope that members of Parliament, Honorable Edward and Honorable Mbui and their colleagues, will elect an individual that has history of performance, that has history of unity. I am not sure what the other side are pushing or who they are pushing. I'm not sure. But if we are to compare whoever they are pushing with who we are pushing, then I can tell you, majority of Kenyans will agree with me that they'd rather Kenneth Otiato as their speaker. And that can only be done through a vote from the members of Parliament.
Honorable Muri, I'm very curious to find out, what you think about all this. Of course, the Kenya Kwanza candidate, Moses Wetangula, who is the senator-elect for Bungoma. What does that mean in terms of the race he just won in his county and now vying for this position?
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. Allow me just before I answer that, maybe I just fault my friend Fred here. Because if the seat is about, if positions is about people who are tried and tested, Kalonzo Musyoka would be the speaker. Kalonzo Musyoka today will be the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, or rather the deputy of Raila Amolo Odinga. But I see that's not the choice. Now, Kalonzo on one hand, he missed being the deputy. On the other hand, he has missed being the nominee of the president, the speaker nominee. And make matter worse, some of these things in the coalition, they are tied in a pre-election agreement. I don't think there is that kind of a clause whereby Kalonzo is supposed to become the Prime Minister. So, my point here is very simple. The question of being tried and tested, I would say Kalonzo Musyoka comes in as one who has been tried and tested, both in terms of being the deputy president and also the speaker. But coming to the side of Kenya Kwanza, we had what you call pre-election agreement between Ford Kenya, ANC, and UDA. Then we formed the Kenya Kwanza coalition, and we clearly stipulated that Wetangula, Honorable Wetangula, the senator, would be our first choice for the speaker. And for that, as far as we are concerned, I would say it's a foregone conclusion. Our numbers in Parliament are seen differently. And also, coming to the issue about the independents, remember the independents have a choice to vote. And being independent does not mean that you don't have a position. You do have a position. In law, you have a right to vote. And we have signed an agreement with them for working closely, both inside and outside Parliament. And therefore, when you work on the numbers, the people like UDM have brought in almost close to 10 registrators. So bottom line, we are saying our candidate, who is Moses Wetangula, the senator for Bungoma, is and will be the next speaker of the National Parliament.
Let me go back. Yes, go ahead, Fred.
Vicky, I think honorable member here, Edward, is not being honest. He cannot say that he doesn't believe that there was such an agreement that puts Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka at an advantage point of being a potential chief cabinet secretary or prime minister, if you like. And he believes that in their side, Kenya Kwanza, there was one that puts one of them as such. Yeah. And we are in a coalition agreement that was signed and deposited. As a politician and as an elected member, he ought to have known that those documents were deposited with the register of political parties, and she's the custodian. Number two, I want to ask him, because in the provisions of law, Article 106, there shall be a speaker of National Assembly who is elected and not a member of the Parliament. Now, here is a case where Kenya Kwanza are promising Moses Wetangula meat, and the meat is hanged on top of a tree. and he cannot reach it because of the legal hurdles that is between him and the meat. I don't think they are being honest with Baba Waroma. They are not. Because the first thing that Baba Waroma must do, he must resign from his position as Senate. If things go separate, I mean different ways by today evening, then what does that mean? Is he risking losing a seat that will not, otherwise would have served the people of Bungoma as senator and go for a seat that he's not going to get because loyalty will shift, or what is he trying to do? I think Honorable Murui should remain Legal Affairs Secretary of Kenya Kwanza and not Azimio, because he has no clue of details that are in the Azimio coalition agreement. We do have those information. And we ask them that in this contest of the speaker, for us, we are clear in our mind. We are bringing the people of Kenya through the members of parliament, an individual that is not a member of parliament as provided for by law in Article 106.
But let me have Honorable Muriu respond. He's pulled out his constitution there. But you know, in terms of the understanding politically is that even if Moses Wetangula loses the senatorial seat, loses the speaker seat, he'll get a nice cushiony job as a cabinet secretary within Kenya Kwanza. And that's what we've kind of seen in past regimes. But, you know, Honorable Murui, let me have you respond first and then come to Fred and Honorable Murui.
Yeah, the beauty about all these pre-election agreements, they're deposited with the registrar or political parties, and we know the content. It's not a secret in terms of who gets what, and therefore I do not want to belabor on the issue about Kalonzo Musyoka, because again it does not belong to my Kenya Kwanza faction. But I would say openly that I think if there's someone who has been shortchanged is Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. Coming to the issue about Wetangula, Senator Bungoma, we have no doubt about our mind, because at the opportune moment, once the President Gazette, the first sitting of Parliament, he will deposit his resignation with the clerk of the National Assembly, and therefore he becomes a candidate for National Assembly. But and again, we have remember some of these things about in Kenya Kwanza. We normally say mambo ni kujipanga. As far as we are concerned, as we have jipangaed properly with the right numbers, we have jipangaed properly with the right approach to issues, and we don't see any reason why Kenya Kwanza coalition would not be able to deliver the position of the Speaker of National Assembly. We do not want to recycle the way that the Azimio is doing. We don't want to recycle. We want to bring people with new ideas, fresh minds, fresh faces. Remember, Baba Waroma was in the Senate previously. Now we want him to bring new ideas to the new parliament. So here we are. We have the numbers, and we have the right people to be able to steer the next parliament.
And what about the numbers that Kenya Kwanza currently has in Senate? If they lose Senator-elect Moses Wetangula, what does that mean?
Remember, this is a democratic country, and for you to win, you must throw the dice on the floor. And from where we sit, and that's why my competitors here have been complaining that we are poaching their members. Kenya Kwanza, you know, I say, sisi ni watu wa kujipanga. So we were not doing that just for optics. We were not bringing the UDM for optics. We were not bringing the BAS for optics, and many others. We did not sit down with the independents and came up with a working agreement just for optics. We were doing that purposely. Number one is to ensure Kenya Kwanza is able to deliver a speaker. That's number one, because his numbers matter. It's about voting with the majority of the members of parliament, and we have the numbers. Secondly, because of our very, very extensive legislative agenda, we also want, number one, a speaker who can be able to understand where you are coming from, and number two, numbers which can be able to sail through and in the bills in parliament. So all these things are geared towards ensuring that the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, where we said we are going to bring the Hustlers Fund, where we said we're going to bring a subsidized fertilizer, where we said we are going to create employment for those young people in Gatanga. That's where we are geared to. And therefore, we have not at the back of our mind that the numbers we have, irrespective of what the Supreme Court today will say.
Let me get, Honorable Mbui's.
Yes, you know, when you listen to the Honorable Murio, it's like he's holding brief for my party leader. He's mentioned Kalonzo more than he has mentioned Rigathi here, and really, I want to advise him. Can you keep on your lane? We stay on ours. But I understand, because if you are talking of people of substance, we have Marende, we have Kalonzo, we have many people in Azimio, and when you look on the other side, the number of people that can be able to go and lead that house from your side is probably, that's where the problem is. That's why you have to keep mentioning our people. And I'm surprised when he said that we want new faces, and he calls the former leader of minority of the Senate a new face. Maybe if you hadn't been watching Citizen, he's always been around and holding that senior position in Senate. Now, on the issue of numbers, you've mentioned the issue of numbers. You have been told here that the numbers are clearly in the favor of Azimio. I don't know. Allow me to just say that this last election was one of the most expensive elections we've ever held, because there was so much voter bribery, and it started a while back. Voter bribery in churches, voter bribery for the general public, and I hope that now this voter bribery is not going to our leaders, because that's the only way that a leader from Kenya Kwanza can become the Speaker of the House. That is the only way. But then you will also be hurting Senate if that happens, because suddenly in Senate the numbers will be balanced. So now it will be a tie. So there will be no tiebreaker. So I don't know how it will happen if this person moves out and then goes to vie for the Speaker of National Assembly. But that also, I can also advise my good friend Senator Moses Wetangula that suddenly Ford Kenya will not have a senator in Kenya, and he's been the only senator the last 2 terms. So Ford Kenya as a party needs to also grow. So he needs to remain there and support his party. But finally, on the issue of because we've said that we have a credible candidate, I want to just remind Kenyans that in 2007, when we had that very heavily disputed general election, where we believe Raila won, and the House was, the numbers were in favor of ODM. ODM had the numbers in the House. And when they did the election of Speaker Marende, you will notice that the first order of business was, I think it was the members of parliament to be sworn in. During that period, the members the Speaker was, I think, elected, then they would oversee the swearing in. Yes. And now it's the other way around. But at that time, if you remember, the Honorable Ababu Namwamba refused, because his name comes very early due to alphabetical order. He refused completely to swear allegiance to the president, and he kept saying that his president was Raila Amolo Odinga. If you notice, when Marende was elected Speaker, he put his foot down. He was ODM, Raila was his leader, but he said, no, I have to stop being partisan. This country must heal. We must move forward, and we must work as a parliament. And in fact, forced members of ODM to now swear the oath as prescribed by law. So I think this is a very fair person. I would urge that Kenya Kwanza, because when it comes to elections of the Speaker, not only are we going to vote with our coalitions, but also with our conscience. I would urge that they elect a person that is able to drive the country forward. This, again, is a very disputed election, and I will tell you, the houses, both houses are hanging. Because if a difference of 1 or 2 members means that every single vote will require every member in the House. Right. And let me tell you, Honorable Murio, there is nothing difficult. You know, we've tried in the last 2 parliaments, even to get 2/3 was always impossible. It was almost always impossible. And in fact, most times, even to get the actual number, which is 233 members in the House, was actually a virtual impossibility. So for us to have a House that is hung to a difference of 1, 2, 3 members, that's a very difficult House. That requires a very seasoned leader. And I would imagine that Marende would be non-partisan and would help us be able to move forward. You've seen the last 2 parliaments, the 11th and the 12th parliament, under the leadership of your new latest catch, the JB Muturi. You've seen the fights that have been there, physical fights in Parliament. I mean, it was like a war zone in Parliament for the last 10 years. We want a leader that can ensure that that doesn't happen. And I want to say that I think Marende, and he's known for Solomonic wisdom, I think he fits that bill.
All right, that remains to be seen. But I think regardless of how the Supreme Court ruling goes today or who is voted as the Speaker of the National Assembly, what will be critical is how the opposition operates. Because there will be an opposition. We haven't really had a defined opposition since, 2018 in this country? Mm-hmm. And what does that mean generally in terms of how Parliament will carry out its business? Fred, let me give that to you.
Thank you, Vicky. I think I agree with you. But even though we really don't have provisions for opposition as such, mm-hmm. But in the National Assembly and maybe in the Senate, we have got the minority leadership. And we expect that those roles, they'll play them as per the requirement of law. However, it will be very interesting to observe that the numbers as they are, they're more or less the same. It is very close. And you see, when members of Parliament take decisions in Parliament, there are certain thresholds that the law requires of them, a third, you have 2/3, and those thresholds will be very difficult to achieve if the numbers are not favoring the majority. And therefore, a lot of lobbying will be required. And that means not only we need a speaker that is suitable and capable, we also need the House leadership, whether it is minority leadership, majority leadership, the committee heads that are very capable and able to unite people when a national agenda is tabled, so that Kenyans don't lose. Because Kenyans have the risk of losing on a national agenda when they have a partisan house that is not focused on solving the issues. Now, in the issue of opposition, I have always maintained that this election, whatever the outcome of the Supreme Court, there must be a faction that will have to put the other into check. That faction will know that faction, which one it is, by end of today. But I strongly believe that because Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, legally speaking today, already has a majority in Parliament, particularly in the National Assembly, we do believe that they will be controlling the numbers in the National Assembly legally. And therefore, we expect our friends and colleagues in Kenya Kwanza to actually observe, the issues that they should be doing on checking on their colleagues who shall be majority. But that's not even the issue. The issue is, how can this Parliament work together for the benefit of the common man? How can this Parliament guarantee that whatever they are going to do in that house shall be for the sole benefit of the public? Because that's why they are elected. So in the issue of opposition, it will just play outside Parliament. But inside Parliament, if you look at our Constitution, it provides that the Member of Parliament shall address, resolve issues of concern to the people. Yeah. The people are us outside here who are not in Parliament. The people are their constituents who are not in Parliament. That role brings a collective responsibility, whether they are Kenya Kwanza or Azimio. So they have to do that job according to the dictates of law. They have to do it irrespective. Number two, when they play opposition politics, it doesn't mean that it will be an opposition politics where they will be running around as we have seen in the past, 2007 going backwards. We want to see a constructive opposition, if that opposition will be there from Kenya Kwanza. We want to see a constructive opposition that believes that for sure, if they say that, because both camps, we did say that we are going to, first 100 days, lower the cost of living. I saw yesterday their deputy party leader telling Kenyans that the reason, their deputy party leader, Gachagua, saying that the reason why the cost of living has not been lowered up to now is because there's a case in court. These are leaders who are elected who, irrespective of whatever court case, they still have the opportunity to offer something to the public. I was very shocked. I saw them also saying the reason why the police have not been given a better pay is because of a court case. I mean, I think that those are sentiments that can only come from opposition, if you ask me. So for me, I am looking at the parliament as a house that has got an opportunity to do the best for the people of Kenya. I wouldn't want for now to look at it as opposition versus government, because those are still technical issues that we will know maybe by end of today. But in terms of service delivery, Honorable Edward here, I'm sure when he was campaigning in Gatanga, he had a manifesto. He had an agenda for the people of Gatanga. And what I would challenge him also, Gatanga at some point was one of the best constituencies during the time of Peter Kenneth. I don't know what he's going to do to ensure that he matches those standards. I'm not sure what his predecessor did, but I know by history it was one of the best constituencies by performance. So I think now, let's forget about the issue of we are in government, they're in opposition, they're in opposition in government, but the people who elected you, who are having expectation of your services to them, what are you doing to them? Because the national interest for the people is more important than personal interest. That is what Kenyans who are watching us today are asking themselves. Edward, we elected you. What are you going to do about the roads? What are you going to do about the school fee? What are you going to do about all this unemployment, the joblessness? That is what we want to see. Whether you're in opposition or in government, that must come, because they normally say, my constituents first. I am sure that Honorable Mbui constituents come first. I am sure your constituents come first. But in this parliament, please, we ask you, when you go there, let us have a parliament that is functional. Let us have a parliament that when the public look at you, they don't see people throwing bottles, they don't see people insulting each other, but they see a robust discussion on national issues that are going to be of importance to the people of Kenya.
Yeah, go ahead, Honorable Muriu.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm listening to my colleagues here from the Azimio side, and I'm very astonished because I'm seeing them. It's an issue of a kettle calling pot black. The genesis of our Kenyan challenges today came as a result of handshake, whereby deliberately the opposition was killed. And therefore it became a free fall, whereby borrowing became an everyday affair. The prices of basic commodities went up, and the subsidies were scrapped. And therefore, when I hear my friends talking about opposition here, I'm getting surprised, because the problems we are having here today as a country is because there has not been check and balance along the way. Things has been happening. There's been a blank check to borrow and blank check to do things. But that beside the point. I would say, as a Democrat, the opposition is important, both inside and outside parliament, because the law says absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I do believe, and I think here is about Kenyans knowing that being in the opposition does not mean that you're in hell. In fact, you have a role to play to make sure that the government is put on a straight and the narrow in terms of all the promises and for the well-being of the Kenyans. And therefore, for me, is about of saying, look, which, and Kenyans have already decided, is about which side of the political divide has the best agenda. Yeah. That's number one. And number two, therefore, is about making sure that that agenda comes through. But again, with all the necessary checks and balances. So I'll urge my friends over here, if they happen to be in the opposition, a position is not hell. You have a role to play. Don't come for handshake. Please play the role. Make sure the government is put on the straight and narrow, and the promises they made to the Kenyan people, they're able to deliver 100%.
You know, Honorable, yeah, go ahead, you can react.
No, I'm very happy. The UDA Secretary for Legal Affairs clearly has demonstrated very strong tenets of being a good opposition leader and being a very strong member of the opposition. And I'm happy that they've accepted, because they've already started blaming government, and he's even reminding us of that blame game of the handshake. I mean, he's gone back to handshake. That is 5 years ago. And he's told us how handshake has brought these problems. And that is exactly how opposition works. And we're happy that you've realized where you belong. But I want to say that For me, I would like us to move from, from the opposition and government, because there's still a ruling to be made, and we'll know our roles then. But even now, we still have roles as members of parliament.
Yeah.
And I would like us to probably concentrate a lot more on how we will be able to deliver on the promises that we have made. The Honorable, let me call him Honorable because he is holding a very senior public office in Kanu, has mentioned that Gatanga was, the top constituency for many years, in management of CDF and in offering development agenda for the people. Maybe what we need to look at is exactly how are we going to be able to do that. And please, Victoria, allow me to just raise something that Fred mentioned earlier. I wanted to look for an opportunity to address that matter. That when you said that when we go into parliament, let people be heard, let people speak. And there's a lot of members of parliament that lose their seats after 5 years because people say, we don't hear you in the house. And maybe, Maria, I'll also tell you, because I've been around for a while, there's a real problem that Kenyans need to understand. The house is big. First and foremost, the National Assembly has 349 members of parliament that sit there on 3 times a week to deliberate. And every one of them wants an opportunity to say something. Each of the days is about 4 hours. If you look at the number of minutes, that's about 240 minutes. Now, when the business of the house starts, the clerks will get an opportunity to speak because they are the ones who read the order that has to come. The speaker gets opportunity, and Kenyans have seen Speaker, Muturi, spend quite a while speaking about the issues that are on the house. Many times he also has a statement to read for the house. That is eating into that 240 minutes. Members of parliament are given 10 minutes to speak when they get the opportunity. But when it comes to the people now moving motions, and these are normally the chairs of committees, they'll be given up to 45 minutes. Then the leader of majority will be given, an extended period of time to communicate his agenda, and the leader of the minority party. By the time members are given an opportunity to speak, barely will 10 members get an opportunity to speak. If you're talking about 10 minutes, we will not have even much more than 100 minutes. And we are talking about 3 times a week. So 10 members one day, 10 another day, 10 the third day, the week is gone. And sometimes the members, because, when it comes to identifying who will speak, the speaker holds sway. And there are people who, the speaker might want to hear a comment or opinion of certain members because of their expertise, maybe even their personal relationship, whatever it is. So there are members who can be in that house, slot in their card, request to speak, and be there every single day and not get opportunity.
Yeah.
But then the public out there will be saying, we don't hear you. I've seen headlines in the Nation newspaper, the members who don't speak, who have not spoken. But they have not gone to check whether these people did ask to speak. The person that controls who speaks is actually the speaker. Because every member of parliament is elected to that house through vying for an elective position by talking. So every member can actually talk. They may not speak good English, but they can speak Swahili, and it's allowed. But you find that people keep getting blamed for not talking in the house because public does not understand the technicalities. I thought it's important because we are starting the 13th parliament, and I don't want to see colleagues being castigated in the newspapers. They must check whether they come to the house and whether they asked for opportunity to speak. If they ask for opportunity and they don't get it, then it's not their fault. Previously, members used to stand. And so if it is televised, you see them stand, then the speaker will look and say, let that one speak, member for this place. Now they don't stand. You just put your card and slot in and request and sit back. At that time, if you go and look at the screen, there's almost like 30, 40, 50 people who have requested before you.
So has technology hurt the debate?
It hasn't hurt the debate. It has hurt the public from knowing that we are requesting to speak. I wish maybe going forward we might ask that the request list be also televised so that people can see the Honorable Robert Mbui of Kathiani has requested to speak on this matter, but has not been given the chance.
Did not catch the speaker's eye.
I want to go back to something that Honorable Mbui had talked about, which was checks and balances. Extremely important in terms of what this 13th Parliament will do. But the reality is, and the script that most members of Parliament have been going by is the proximity to the executive is what makes one more effective. How do we challenge that as, the 13th Parliament coming in to really be about the interests of the people? I'll start with you, Fred.
I think, as I said, Vicky, actually, it's not even only members of Parliament. You see, majority of Kenyans believe that when you are closer to power, particularly the presidency, then your chances of success as a region, as a tribe, as a group are higher in terms of development, which should not be the case, because the president takes oath of office to be the president of everyone, including those who did not vote for him or her. And therefore, to that extent, he is the president or she is the president of the Republic of Kenya. But when you see certain individuals, particularly members of parliament, in this last election, trying to associate with an announcement that this so-and-so is the president-elect for now, believing that when they do so, then they shall be favored probably in terms of resource allocation, while the people who do this in the National Assembly, I think it is wrong. What we must understand is that as a member of parliament who stands an opportunity to resolve issues of concern, you must remain steadfast, you must remain true to your ideology of a party or and you must legislate, you must oversight, you must represent. Those three core functions are what you are supposed to do, irrespective of who is the president. Number two, we have also seen instances where people complain that, you know, Mheshimiwa Rais, when you come these sides, this road, I mean, we have a budget. Yeah. And that budget comes from different, proposals come from different government departments, and it is put, and members of parliament deliberate on those issues. Again, it goes back to your role as a member of parliament. You are the most important person in all these things. Remember, the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. In this case, we are trying to delink executive from the legislative. And we have seen before where the last parliament was accused. And he has just done it here. My good friend, Honorable Edward, he said, you know, this parliament, the last one, we saw handshake, broke it into pieces. There was no opposition. I don't think so. The fact that two leaders decided that they want to unite this country and their lieutenants in parliament followed suit does not mean that those lieutenants just followed suit without, their mind. They should have remained, or they should remain true to themselves and to their people. I do expect to see a 13th parliament that when it is wrong, they'll say it is wrong. When it is right, they'll say it is right. And most importantly, a 13th parliament that can address issues of concern. Because to me, I'm looking at this parliament, most of them are also fairly new. And when they go into these, the expectations from themselves and from their people are also high. How are they going to balance the fact that they will be seen oversighting the executive that they actually belong? Because, for example, if Honorable Mbui is a member of Wiper and Azimio by extension, and Azimio forms government, and there's something that is of concern to the people, not only of Kadiani, but from Kabondo, Kasipul, where I come from, or from wherever, Homa Bay. Yeah. And he has to stand on the floor and address that issue as a national leader. Will he be seen to be opposing the government that he serves? I don't think so, because he is a member of parliament whose role is to address those issues. So for me, I think that we must delink the executive from the legislature politically and allow members of parliament going forward to do their roles and do it exemplary well.
You know, another reason why the numbers and this shift of power matters in the House is how to populate the powerful committees in the House. Honorable Murillo, of course, the one that will be very critical will be the appointments committee. When you talk about appointing cabinet secretaries, for instance. So what are members looking at when it comes to populating those committees, and what that means down the road in terms of governance in this country?
Yeah, I can just walk the viewers basically on the process, because after electing the speaker, then there is what you call immediately there is what you call the leader of the majority. and the leader of the minority.
Yeah.
There are seats which in the committee which are predominantly for the minority, the PIC and the PAC, and the other seats which are now for the majority. And then what happens is that the leader of the majority comes up with the select committee, and the select committee, what it does is to sit down and allocate now the members in those committees. Remember, a week or so ago, we went to Parliament for induction. At that induction, the purpose was to, first of all, give out our priorities in terms of what are our skills, what is this we like to do in Parliament. And that way we were able to put that across. And therefore, what happened is that the select committee will come back and then and allocate members to committees where they feel they are strongly, they can be able to influence or they have the skills. Yeah. That is on the select committee. Coming to the cabinet secretaries, of course, the arm which is selects the committee. Remember that the cabinet is the executive. Executive is the one who will now be able to pick up the cabinet ministers who they want to work around with. But you see, in a party hegemony, what happened is that we do know the party is a conversation, is a silent conversation which goes around in terms of who suits where. Some of them come purely based on merit, because again there are some technical cabinet ministers which come in because they have skills in that kind of ministry. Others come in purely as being the political custodian of the people, because we want to show the country that each and every region is represented. And thirdly, you may find that the cabinet position will come, some because of what you call the pre-election agreements, like the situation in Kenya Kwanza, where Honorable Musalia Mudavadi is slated to become the chief minister, purely because it has come along those lines. But basically, yes, it's a whole conversation. And the beauty about the Kenya Kwanza and the UDA party, we are doing a lot of consultation within ourselves. We are able to ensure that every area in this country, every sector, every county in this country, we are well represented, be it at the cabinet level, be it at the national appointment, just to ensure that there's a ownership. Everybody feels part and parcel of that government. But again, that has to happen because the Parliament has not been convened. But I'm sure that's again the first agenda when the Parliament convenes.
Another agenda that, Honourable Mbui, you want to...
I would like to respond to an issue raised before it goes, which I think Fred has talked to. The issue of that conflict or possible conflict between or confusion between the roles of members of Parliament vis-a-vis the executive in the House, whether you're in the majority or the minority parties. Now, I think the Constitution actually does answer those two questions, because Article 95 defines the roles of members of Parliament, and it is very clear that members are supposed to represent the people, they're supposed to make laws, legislate, and then oversight the government. So it's a bit complicated when you talk about the issue of oversight, because when you're elected in the same party as the president, it becomes a bit difficult to tell him publicly that he's wrong. So I think that's where the gray area is. But basically, we are not supposed to hold brief for the executive. You've seen the Honorable Duale when he was leader of majority. He did that very well. He defended every indefensible issue because even when the government was rogue, he had to stand on the floor and defend that position. So I think the Article 95 tells him to oversight, but unfortunately, because of being given this position of leader of majority, you believe that then it means you have to support whatever rogue ideas come from the executive. Article 10, on the other hand, talks about values and principles, and in that they talk about issues to do with regional balance. Now, the reason why a lot of members, even these defections happen, is because there's members who believe that if you're closer to the president of the day, then you're likely to be supported in terms of possibly you get more development in your region. Probably when the appointments for, cabinet secretaries and ambassadors, maybe your region will be favored because you voted in a certain way. That's where people defect. But then they forget that the Article 10 talks about, in the values, it talks about regional balance. So you're not supposed to form cabinet and take members of cabinet from specific regions and leave out other areas, which has happened, unfortunately, in the last regime. We saw that happen in 2013, a bit of that in 2017 again. So I think if we are to follow the constitution and make sure that there is regional balance, then it means that even if the region I come from did not elect a certain team and they managed to win presidency, then we still do deserve to be recognized and be part of that government, because even that is part of Kenya. I think those are some of the issues that the executive needs to deal with. But having said that, I'm very convinced that we will do a good job when we take over. We will run as majority in the House and do our job and tell our leaders, the Azimio leaders are to be running the country, to do things in the right manner. And we will not hesitate to speak on the floor and say when we think that our leadership in Azimio, as the presidency, if there's any mistakes, we will not hesitate to tell them.
I have to ask the question, the integrity question, when it comes to this 13th Parliament, because at least 12 members-elect are in court fighting charges like fraud, while others are trying to stop their imprisonment. And this brought up this whole debate again of the integrity of office holders when it comes to elective posts and what that means moving forward. We are focused on numbers, but we also need to look at who are we voting in, who is taking the mandate of the people. But what do you make of this very real issue that we're facing as a 13th Parliament? I'll start with you, Honourable Murillo. Then.
Thank you very much. And that's a very pertinent issue here. And I'll say it has been a very sad affair because most of those cases, the list of the people have got cases in court. They are not in court because there are any crimes committed, but they are there because the executive decided to punish them. You may find that, for example, the Deputy President-elect Gachagua has cases in court. But if you look at those cases, it's purely because of his political stand and many others.
So it's a political witch hunt.
I'm saying those charges are there because of the political stand they have. And we find that most of the people who have got those cases is purely because they have refused, they have refused to the whims of the sitting executive and refuse to sing their song. And that's what you find, and I think I said this earlier, the reason why the coalition of Azimio is crumbling is purely because those coalitions did not come voluntarily. They did not come because of the strength of Azimio's manifesto. It came because of the intimidation and threats which came into it. The guy said, it's not me facing the Court 1 corruption or being said EACC, let me sign. That will give me at least an umbrella over myself. So bottom line, that is a gist of it. The people who have got cases is not because they have any crimes they have committed. It's because they are on their side of the divide. Secondly, remember we are slaves to the Constitution and the law, and the law. Our law is very clear that you remain innocent until you be proved guilty. Right. And therefore, a charge here does not mean necessarily that you might be corrupt or you have some criminal charges or you are guilty. Because again, we live in a country whereby we respect the rule of law. We respect the process of the law, whereby everybody get an opportunity to defend themselves, and therefore one cannot be able to put a finger and say this one should not be there. But finally, Chapter 4, of the Constitution is about the Bill of Rights. And remember, Kenyans have the will of the people is supreme at Article 1. Now, then, if then the people of a certain constituency decide to vote a member of parliament with a case in court, that is their choice. You cannot deny them because everything, the constituency is supreme. They voted for that person with their eyes open. They know the challenges, and therefore, again, we are bound by our constitution. We are bound by our law, and therefore, the will of the people will remain supreme. That's why today we be in Supreme Court because my president-elect, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, in public has been tried in public, being told that thief, blah, and this kind of, all this kind of thing. But again, the will of the people remains supreme, irrespective of what the other side of the divide says.
So, Fred, does this say more about the electorate than it does about the leaders who are actually voted in with these clouds over their heads?
You know, Vicky, Honorable Edward, I like his passion when he keep referring us to Chapter 4, and I'm sure he's talking about Article 38, political rights, which is okay. But he's reading this in isolation because he's forgetting also Chapter 6, and specifically Article 73, responsibility of leadership. Sometimes back, Vicky, you can recall, Matiang'i told Kenyans that we risk electing 40% into parliament of people with questionable character. Today, I'm not sure if that 40% has been achieved, but I know there are certain individuals that already have active cases and have been elected. And again, IEBC cleared some of these people. Remember, there was the issue of they have not exhausted all avenues of appeal and review. And therefore, to that extent, they were eligible to run. Now, you have asked a very good question. Is it the people or the person who is elected? The issue here has been there is a principle of selecting and electing leaders. That principle requires that that person must be first suitable and then must be capable. All these people could be suitable and capable. But when you go back to suitability and you are becoming a state officer as a member of parliament or as whoever who is elected, what you must know is that that authority that is assigned to you is a public trust, and you must exercise it in a certain manner. One of the manners is that it must bring dignity to the people that you lead, dignity to the office that you hold, integrity to the public. If you are this person of questionable character, whether you are guilty or not, whether arraigned or not, and there's this cloud hanging around you that you are a wash-wash, that you are a this, do you really believe that where you are seated you are happy? Do you really believe that you're promoting the integrity in the public? Do you really believe that the office you hold as a member of parliament brings dignity to the people that you lead in your constituency? My answer is no. And to me, I said, and I argued this on this same studio before the election, that the public have got the final say. If you strongly believe that you are going to use the principle of suitability and capability to elect a leader that will conform with the requirements of Chapter 6, then go to the ballot and elect that leader. But if you believe that ni mwizi wenu, then also go and elect that person. Then the consequences will be dire, because we must live with the consequences. Today, the 13th Parliament has been elected. We do hope they'll take oath of affirmation of the office, and we want to test them on leadership and integrity first. Okay. I can tell you, and I'm not a prophet of doom, but some of them, you will see recalls coming. Some of them, you will see them going to court to answer cases. Some of them, you will start seeing negative stories around them by the media, because the media must report the truth.
All right, so let's see how the last word goes to you, Honorable Mbui. We have a few minutes to go.
Thank you, Victoria. You know, when I don't want to say much, but listening to the UDA Secretary for Legal Affairs appoint himself legal counsel for all leaders with corruption cases, and says something. It says something. You know, in that space, I'm a bit concerned. And then his first defense has been to say that all these cases are to do with the executive, and, you know, cases were brought up for political reason. You know, money has been lost. You know, Kimwarer, Aro, and other places, money has been lost. Other counties, you've seen money trails even being put on headlines of newspapers, where money has even been put in family, you know, in children's accounts, siblings accounts, and friends' accounts. So clearly, money has been lost. I think what I would say is on this matter that it is a judicial matter. And for me, I think what we need to do as legislators, because I think if somebody has stolen from the public, then they have to carry their cross. What I would say is that we need to look at what we can do to support the judiciary to be able to expedite these cases. That is what I would say. First, either is it possible to legislate the time frame within which these cases are sorted out? Because you've seen, like, for example, the Supreme Court has a timeline in the Constitution to deal with the matter of the presidential petition. 7 days hearing, 7 days a decision has to be made. So 14 days and it's done. And that's a very, very weighty case. Now, a case where money has been lost and money it wasn't being carried in gunias, it was being withdrawn from an account. Somebody took that money. What did they take it for? Where did they take it? Who was it? Why were they being paid public money from the public coffers? So I think for me, I would rather we legislate and put timelines on how quickly these cases can be sorted out. And if, for example, the judiciary has a problem, probably it's a financial issue. Again, as a legislators, we can be able to look at the budget and see if we can increase it, because it is actually in our hands, Honorable Muriu. We are able to fight for the judiciary to have more money so that they can expedite these cases, so that you don't sit in Parliament with somebody who's been accused of stealing, and you know, and he's given an opportunity to address matters, and then people look at him like a thief, and when you speak after him, they look at you and they call you two thieves. You know, it's important that this thing be sorted out. I wish that cases could be sorted out before people go to an election, but it takes too long. I mean, the judicial system, the wheels of justice in this country, and I think my colleagues here are both lawyers, I am not, they move very slowly. We need to find a way to hasten the speed so that we can be able to sort out these cases.
All right, and on that note, very quickly, 30 seconds, because we need to wrap up.
Okay, thank you very much, Vicky, for giving us the opportunity. Let me first of all thank the people of Gatanga for giving me an opportunity to serve them as a member of Parliament. And I'm sure, and I pray to God that we have the wisdom, the courage, and the strength to serve them and make sure that all the promises which we promised during the campaigns, we are able to deliver. Secondly, let me bring the greetings from the people of Gatanga to Victoria. And they told me next time when you invite me, next time, I'll bring a pack full of avocados just to have a taste of Gatanga.
The salams have been received, but yeah, where are the avocados? Maybe next time. Thank you so much. Yes,
I think Victoria, there's something that we cannot go without saying.
Yes.
We ask the public to remain peaceful, even as we expect the ruling.
Yes.
Remain calm, and the ruling or the judgment that will come will be victory to all of us as Kenyans. For us in Azimio, we have said we shall accept the verdict. Our presidential candidate said he will accept the verdict. I'm not sure whether his candidate will accept, but for us, we know he'll accept.
Yes, Honorable Mbui, your last word.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to confirm what you have said, that we will accept the verdict of the Supreme Court today and let Kenyans, carry on with their business, because it's important. Elections are not a matter of life and death. We must also carry on the life. We must also continue with our lives.
Indeed. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Honorable Muriu, Fred, and Honorable Mbui for your insights. And of course, we are waiting for that verdict by the 7th bench of the Apex Court. 9 issues to decide on, and we'll be keeping our eyes on the Milimani Law Courts for that decision. Let's take a short break here on Kenya's Choice 2022. There's lots happening in the sporting world with Sporty Monday. I can already see the guests already on standby here in studio. That's the next face you'll be seeing after the break.